see Southgate from a team of 2-3 people to what we are seeing today. I'm so immensely proud about what is happening, the things that you're doing, and there is no doubt that God is on your side. Yeah, there is no doubt that God is on your side. I mean, the things that you've been able to do and to grow, I'm just in awe about how amazing it is to do things the right way and then to begin to see the fruits. And this is just a tip of the iceberg. There's one thing I want to say, and I want to say it now, before I say anything else, before even we go into the talk. And that thing I want to say is, I want to challenge us, all of us here. If you have a piece of paper, laptop, name it, I just want you to take off just 1 minute and write your name and ask yourself just a very simple question that I'm going to put here. Why? Why me? Why me? Why me? I just want you to just take just a minute or two to ask yourself this question: why me? Why me at a time such as this one? Why me in Southgate? Why me married? Why me dressed in, I think this is pink, pink and that blue? Yeah, not baby blue, just blue, just blue. Why me? Why me at a cellar? Why? Why in 2023? Right? Why was I born? You know, I just want you to just, in 2 minutes, just think. You don't have to ask your neighbor for the correct answer. This is your own. This is your own that I want you to just consider as an individual. So I'll just give you 1 minute or two to think through that, and then we shall proceed. Right. You can keep on thinking about it even as we talk, and we shall get there somehow towards the end. Right. And I'd like to challenge us that none of us is placed on the earth as a biological substance, as a certain professor in Chimpanzee Political School once said that we're just here biological substances. You know, we come, we live, we die, and we go away. No, there's always a certain why as to the creation that we were given, and I don't shy away from the scriptures. The Bible talks about, I think it's in the New Testament. It says that when King David had finished his purpose on this earth, he then rested. It therefore means that for all of us, there is a purpose for which we must do and accomplish before we rest. Right? Number 2, I'd like to challenge you to think of yourselves as a vessel that is not an end to itself, but a vessel that is being used for others. A vessel that is supposed to propagate. In essence, I mean that when Claire, Sandra, and the team began Southgate Consulting, a time has come whereby they have had to open the doors and bring you all in. But that should not be where it ends. That each and every one of us seated here, we also have the same challenge to open our own gates, whatever it may be, and bring others in. So I want you to start thinking of yourself not as an employee, in Southgate, but as a useful cog in the wheel that is Southgate. And even as you say, why me? Beyond the employment that you have on your contract, what else is it that I was brought into? Beyond being the chief of administrators, beyond being the QS, beyond being graduate X, Y, and Z, there is a more important work that you have to do at Southgate. And so I want to challenge you that beyond earning my salary, what else have I been given this opportunity to do? It is beyond your paycheck. It is beyond coming to work at 8 and leaving at 5:30. That space you've been given is like the space that King Artaxerxes was given during the days of Babylon, when Queen Esther was queen. And they needed the king. Yes, he was king, he ruled, but his purpose was to ensure that he is the one in position to ensure that the Jewish state never dies. Apart from being king and having all the glory that came with it, his actual purpose was to be the one who had the signet ring, who got married to Queen Esther, who made sure that she never, that she does her role in protecting the Jewish people who are still a people up to today. And I want you to think about how many people in this world have existed for as long as the Jewish people. Not many. Not many. Some are just a handful. I'll tell you, Alex's, Musa's dad was my history teacher. And he was talking about West Africa and the wars that were happening in West Africa. And there was a guy called Sundiata, I believe. I don't know if it was Sundiata or someone. I don't know if any of you remember your history. I know you are mostly scientists here. And he said that this person killed everyone, and the only people who survived could only be gathered under a tree. Many of us are descendants of different nations that no longer exist. But you can trace the Jewish state from time as far back as you can think about. But so I want you to think of your role in terms of destiny. Now let us begin. As you think about that, in that regard, let's begin. So my presentation, and I know I don't have a lot of time. First of all, the book is called We Don't Teach That at the University. And it starts with certain stories. The first story is about people who actually totally failed the university. Yeah. And we don't even know, actually did not know that people actually totally fail at the university and drop off. I always assume that by the time you're at the university, you're going to pass. And you will get a job after that. 2, stealing from an NGO and annoying the top leadership. There are some people, there's a scenario where I represented a client who, brilliant mind, comes from a great family, but the brother was stealing from an NGO. And as his lawyer, I write these stinging letters against the NGO, only to be shocked by the evidence that came up about my client. A person I trusted, whose story I believed in. That's scenario number 2. Scenario number 3, I was teaching one time and I got a student who came to me and said, look, I work with State House. I said, okay, I want to change my script and give you a different one. And the next change, I'll give you a fuel card. Now, at the time I was teaching, fuel cards were a rarity. It was not something you hear about. Yeah, you have them now. But in our days, you need know about a fuel, I'll give you a fuel card and I'll give you the cases that we receive at the State House. That time I remember my Benz was in E. I said no. E, Ejude. Stories of lecturers lacking and being sacked for unprofessional behavior. A man being employed and is stealing at his very first job. The fake doctor and fake COVID-19 drugs, etc. Students having doing plagiarism at the university. Then you also have situations whereby somebody actually who read my book and said, look, I've done 16 years in architecture school. She dropped off, tried to survive on her own, but could not. She was even so traumatized by the sight of the Makerere University gate, which many of us look at in pride. Until she yes, until she finally went back, owned her troubles, I would have said another one, and went and completed. Total failure of the course, I've talked about that. Now, the picture you see here is a familiar picture. For those of you who are adults today, you know this picture. This is the parliament of Uganda. A few years ago when we had this fight taking place. Now, you'd assume that by the time you are an honorable, an adult of sound mind, you do not do something like this before the cameras. But there are people displaying kung fu skills, people throwing I don't know what, and so on, in the blare of international media, you know. And you see these days what we do here is just all over the world. You know? Now, why would an honorable member of parliament do something like this? I'll continue. The supervisor who fails you. I'm sure many of us in our workspaces, you have endured an abusive workmate. You have endured inability to work with others. And yet you've all come with qualifications. You know, in a certain WhatsApp group I have a very senior academician. I think every month that senior academician cannot handle the conversations and walks off. And later, after about another 2-3 weeks, is brought back in. And so you start asking yourself, why? Why? Why is it that even when we have amazing qualifications, we are not able to do the things that would be expected of us? Expected of us. Why would your supervisor intentionally fail you and frustrate you? Because they fear that you're going to take over their job. Ideally, you would assume that someone is so thrilled by your brilliance because when they win, you as the supervisor is also what? Winning. So those are some of the things that I want you to have at the back of your mind even as we have this discussion. And hopefully we shall do very well. So let's start with education. Education is the art or process of imparting or acquiring general knowledge, developing the powers of reasoning and judgment, and generally of preparing oneself or others intellectually. Take note of this word, intellectually, for mature life. So you are being helped, knowledge is imparted, so that you develop powers or skills of reasoning and judgment. That is what education is supposed to be. The act or process of imparting or acquiring particular knowledge or skills as for a profession. I know one of these days we shall have a pointer. Now, education has been defined differently. Aristotle says it's the process of training man to fulfill his aim by exercising all the faculties to the fullest extent as a member of society. All the faculties. Meaning that you should be in a position to do more than just the academic work. That by the time someone says you are educated, it means that you have a holistic type of education. We won't go through all of them. John Dewey says education is all one with growing. It has no end beyond itself. Education is everything along with growth. Education itself has no final destination. In essence, we should be in a space where we are always learning. There are types of education: formal, non-formal, informal. Many of us do not realize how much education we receive informally. I'll give you an example. In my senior one, I went to visit my pediatrician in Mbarara. And I got up, we were going to church, so I stand on my bed, right, the bed, and start wearing my trousers. So he comes and says, "Dad, what are you doing?" I said, I'm wearing my trousers. He said, "No, they don't stand on beds to wear what? Trousers." But no one had ever told me that before. He said, "You stand down, sit, and wear your what?" But you know, ever since I had been born, you know, you bring the kid, you stand the kid on the what? The bed, and you dress them up. And that's how I used to dress all through. So in senior one vacation, I'm going I go to visit him, and he teaches me this, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know. Okay, the other thing he told me was that if you lick sugar, they'll be giving you tea without sugar because your sugar is already. So it is unstructured. While the formal and non-formal, you know what it is all about, all right? But this other one, the boys here, you know, when you're at home and you're a certain age, you become the official TV mechanic. In those days, when it was black and white before you were born, we had a way we would slap the TV in a certain position and the picture would come. These days, things are more complicated. I tell my son, our son, that man, you need to help here. I don't know what's going on. He is pulling wires, connecting things. I'm like, where did this guy learn these things from? So education is like that. What therefore is your own definition of education? I'll ask you, there is a colonial setting here of education and a post-colonial setting here of education. Who of these people is uneducated? Can we say that this man here is not educated? No, he is educated. This is a true life story actually. There's a movie in Kenya of a 90-something-year-old man who went back to school. But you can assume that because he did not go to school and face the blackboard, therefore he is not educated. But he will tell you the times and seasons. He'll tell you when to plant and when not to plant. He'll tell you the use of cow dung. He'll tell you the use of blackjack. Who knows the use of blackjack? Say, anyone here? Yes, what is it for?
It's for healing.
It's for healing wounds. What else? Ulcers. So it is actually edible. What else? You use it as tea. Yeah, I know a professor who drinks nothing else but blackjack for his tea, right? And also, for those of you who look after rabbits, it's a favorite. One of them. So you can see in this picture, this young man, young man is in school. He's in school. He's learning how to read and write. But do not be mistaken. He is more educated than all these young people who are here. He has seen so many generations before him. Okay. Now, what was education used for? Education for colonial purposes was used by colonizing governments because they realized that they gained strength over the colonized persons and nations, not only through physical control, but also through mental control. So they decided that we are going to show you that you are nothing without us. The mental control was carried out through education. The colonizers' educational goal, therefore, was to expose the Africans to a superior culture. No, you don't do things like that. You do things this way. So they had this superior culture of teaching you how to use a fork and a knife and make it look so amazing. I would like to encourage you to listen or to read a book by Okot Bitek. Okot Bitek writes a book called Song of Laluino and Song of Ocho. And he gives a very interesting example. He says that you call me uncivilized because you get your hanky and spit in it, cough into it, cover it up and keep. For me, I dispose of mine and walk away. Where is the healthier one of the two of us? And you know, when I meditated upon that, I was like, oh my goodness, there is something there for us to learn. Education, the colonizers thought education would bring Africans into the modern world, and education would bring them to a higher level of civilization. However, the need for skilled native labor by colonizers for economic development and eagerness to propagate Christianity caused colonizers to use education as a tool to achieve social control over African people. We are still suffering as a result of that. For them, they were using it to control us, because they educated you specifically to service the colonial engine. We need engineers because we want to build the railway. We need a secretary because the secretary will type our minutes. We need a lawyer because the lawyer is going to defend our position against some of these Africans who are becoming wiser. There is no we need doctors because our population needs to be healthy in order for us to tax them. There was no education that was used as just for the sake of gaining knowledge. No, there was a specific purpose for which they did that education, right? So the colonial education was used there for to make sure that you have African people used and qualified for the colonialist economic development. So as an attempt, it was meant to assist the consolidation of foreign rule. So you have King's College Budo aiming at training the Barangira and the royal class, so that when you finally use them in propagating your leadership through imperial rule, it becomes easier. Then you go to Musoga College, which was formerly called the Barangira High School for Barangira. You're educating the Barangira because they already have a social acceptance in society. So you educate them because you want them to be the kind of people you're going to use. You educate people in Gayaza High School because these are the princesses, the Babito of Toro coming there, the Queen, Princess Elizabeth. You're teaching them because you know you're going to use them. And use them they did. So while we have now glorified the educated and those who can speak with an accent, we have missed the bigger plot, which was that education was for them necessarily, not necessarily for us as a people. So that was what colonial education was about. So therefore, the mental control is implemented through a central intellectual location, the school system, or what Louis Azusa would call an ideological state apparatus. Because you can't go through this system and remain the same. The University of Cambridge, for example, all the prime ministers of Britain have either gone through the University of Cambridge or the University of Oxford. I think it's only one or two who did not, but the majority have gone through that. So it's like finishing school to get what they wanted. And by the way, it's not all bad, because of course we learned how to read and write and so on and so forth. Colonial schools therefore sought to extend that foreign domination. And you may wonder, why is it that I am emphasizing this? It's because even in the decisions we make tomorrow regarding our children and our relatives, we must begin to think, what do we want to pick out of them What do we want our people who are going to school to pick up, to do? So, the colonial schools sought to extend foreign domination and economic exploitation of the colony, because colonial education was directed at absorption into the metropole and not separate and dependent development of the colonized in their own society and culture. So you have, for example, the case of Rex versus Amkeo, which was decided in Kenya, saying that marriages of Africans are not marriages but wife purchase. Why? Because you're paying what? Bride price. So in the eyes of this judge, I think it was called Justice Hamilton, he says that no. For us, marriage is a willing adult female and willing adult male. They agree. So totally discarding society and culture and the blendedness that comes from payment of bride price, the respect that you receive as the person who paid bride price. Now you can sit in the council of men, Kubanga or Sasura. And it's not really a payment. It is more like showing that you are capable of being able to look after our daughter. And the interesting thing, like happened in my case, is that even your bride price may not be as much as what will be given to the girl to carry home with her to your home. So all that is lost under this misconception of pagan cultures and societies. So colonial education therefore stripped the colonized people from their indigenous learning structures and drew them towards the structures of the colonizers. One of my most favorable times at home was when we didn't even have electricity. And we would sit by the chapel stove and my mother would tell us stories. Those are the stories that have carried on and on and on that are now being reproduced into books. Nowadays it's the TV that tells those stories, and how I wish we could avoid that. Okay, so that was the ultimate goal. One of them was quoted as saying, "We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions who we govern." This is what actually people like Jomo Kenyatta were doing, interpreters. A class of persons, here we're speaking specifically about Indian, you can say Ugandan in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. Amongst the Francophone people, you have presidents sending, those days they used to have an aeroplane called the Concorde. They would send the Concorde to bring back bread, that long bread, what do you call it? The bagays, yes. So that you feel like you are, the real French person. It's bagays and a cup of soup. All right. So, because of that, therefore, now let us begin to think for ourselves. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who some of you may have heard about, was an author in Kenya. He said, the process of colonial education annihilated a person's or a people's belief in their names, in their languages, in their environment, in their heritage of struggle, in their unity, in their capacities, and ultimately in themselves. It makes them see their past as one wasteland of non-achievement, and it makes them want to distance themselves from that wasteland. It makes them want to identify with that which is farthest removed from themselves. So call me baker. But baker is a person who makes bread. Call me carpenter. A carpenter is a person who makes whatever. So when you give you a name like Katwesije, let us trust, you don't want it. You want to be called baker, you want to be called carpenter, you want to be called forest. You want to be called bush. I have nothing against their name because they represent the work that that class of people used to do. So you were identified by your work. Right? Now, I'm not saying that everything African was good, because there's a young man I used to teach, and he told me his name was Mayende. And I told him, what does mayende mean? He said, mayende are the maggots that eat the dead body. I said, boss, I will do for you a dead ball free of charge to change that name. Pastor Komagum was called Komakech, meaning death. So I'm not saying that everything African meant something good. I'm just saying that there are those things that signaled prosperity, rain, fertility, good neighborliness, and so on and so forth, which we should never have been encouraged to discard. So Fiongo believes that colonial education instilled a sense of inferiority and disempowerment with the collective psyche of a colonized people. So when you think about yourselves carefully, even sometimes some of us who are boasting, we went to Soka College, it's the best school in the world, blah, blah, blah. When you think about it carefully, we are propagating the same thing. We are propagating that Mwawata Soma. First we are lawyers, we're called the land people. You don't know anything. Which is obviously untrue, but we continue to propagate it. So, what then are the assumptions that we make when we are at the university? First assumption, students know what they want to do, when to do it, and how to do it. I'll tell you, this is very far from the truth. Because many young people who join the university have no idea what they want to do. Say, mommy told me to come. When they want to do what and how to do it. They've been shepherded through a boarding school system, and most of us are beneficiaries of that system. You get to the university, you don't. There's no one to take roll call. There's no one to tell you get out of your bed and go to class. I have situations where students have joined university, done one term, and even before that term ends, they finish. Yeah, the rest of the year they are just chilling, drinking, smoking, and having a party, like we call it. Now, that is one. Two, that students are brilliant with a high IQ and have been prepared for university and tertiary institutions of learning. Very huge assumption, obvious assumption, that students know how to deal with failure. And by the way, when I say students here, just include yourself. Students and young adults, that you know how to deal with failure. It's not true. It's a lie. People don't know how to deal with failure. One of our students, about 3-4 semesters back, committed suicide. Yeah, committed suicide. Like, posted on her Facebook or was it Twitter and said some words there, we didn't catch it. Next thing, she's dead. Why? She has failed the subject 2 times. The 3rd time, even before results come, she feels that she has not passed it and says, what is life? A subject. Moreover, this is someone who has studied for so many years and has reached the end of the course in her 4th year. She thinks she's going to be discontinued as though there are no other options. And she decides, I've had enough with this, to help. The other thing we assume is that young adults and students are mature enough. I'm sure our bosses here, you've dealt with some of your employees and you're like, really? Is that the mature decision to take? Is that what you really can do? You know? It is not true that people are mature enough, they need to be helped. That when you leave the university, you will be ready for life. Not at all. That when you get a job, you know what to do. Not at all. What's the reality therefore? The reality is that there is too much freedom. And people don't know how to handle too much freedom. The reality is that people have an inability to balance their time. Peer pressure, sex, drugs, and alcoholism. Undeveloped emotional intelligence quotient, EI. Lack of a vision and a mission and a purpose of life. Unprepared for failure. Unprepared for the workspace. This is what is the reality. But the colonial education gave us, and they said, yeah, you're now educated, but someone who finished a degree and then came to me and said, now what do I do? And I looked at them and said, you've been studying for 4 years, you don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. What do I do with this qualification? All parents are now running around looking for jobs. My daughter, has qualified. She has gotten a degree in X, Y, and Z. You have a job. I said, but your daughter should be the first person to run around looking for the kind of thing she or he wants. Okay, daughter was son. I want to say she or he, referring to daughter. He's in that family. You get into the workspace. I don't know if Claire ever told you. They had, she was working somewhere at one point, and she gave someone her academic documents to make photocopies. The lady made photocopies. No, the lady just shredded them. Wow. Yeah, unprepared for the workplace. You bring your laissez-faire attitude into the workspace. If you've been disrespecting your parents, that's the disrespect you give your bosses. You don't know why you are even in existence. You've never heard that even you can have a personal missional statement and purpose. You've never engaged with that question of really, is the whole of me just Southgate consulting? Is there more to me than just a job? What about my family? What about those people who are around me? What about the people who are watching me? What about the people who need help, who need my word of advice? What about all these things around me? No, we've not had that conversation, serious. So, how did we get there? I've talked about the colonial experience of education, the colonial purpose of education, versus the exposure of the independent states. You see, when the Kawana Wars went to fight in other countries, they suddenly realized that, oh my goodness, the Wazungu also fear. They also run. They're also terrified. They also fall in love with us. And you suddenly realize, oh my, there are other options. VUCA, and I'll talk about this, the constancy of change that is always before us. Before you know it, you have a beard. Before you know it, the beard has turned gray. You don't have as much energy as before. Before you know it, your child has grown. They are no longer the babies. They also have a mouth and they are able to assure you. Change is the only constant thing. Your parents are resigning or retiring and so on and so forth. Your job no longer exists. You're no longer relevant in that space. That kind of thing. Seasons come, seasons go. War and the breakdown of the family. We many times miss or do not appreciate the impact of the breakdown of the family on everything we do. Everything we do. Your family has broken down. I've written a poem about it somewhere. I think it's called Lady Justice. Your family breaks down and it affects the rest of your day. You have a fight with your spouse, you have a fight with your spouse or your spice. And my dear, the day fails. Yeah. I remember those days when I would come to bench Claire in Africa Hall. When I would leave, my dear, I don't remember how I used to. I would not feel the ground. I was floating on it. And I would greet everybody, hello, hello. But because I've been with my HFB, and I was totally in a different paradigm. The same happens when you don't see eye to eye. Everyone becomes a problem. Yeah. Now imagine you have a judicial officer who is sitting to adjudicate over a matter and they've been fighting with the spouse. Yeah. Imagine you go to apply for, I don't know, sometimes you want a license to be granted for building, you want a license for this, you want to, and you find someone who's had a totally horrendous day. You know, and yeah. So some of these things are a reality. War. Once war comes into a system, it messes up everything. Messes up everything. You know, I once volunteered with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. And this lady who looked like my mother, she came from South Sudan, she came and walked into the space where I was doing the recordings and so on, taking down the information, first information. And she was being interviewed, and the man, my boss, supervisor said, "What can we do for you?" And this lady said, "You are now my mother, you are now my father. Whatever you tell me now." There was something about that admission by this lady. She can speak English, she's barefooted, she looks like my mother, respectable woman, but she's saying that whatever you tell me. If you want to throw me into the bush to dig, I'll go. If you want to look after me here, I'll go. I have nothing. Nothing. Now, those things. The other thing is structural adjustment programs. These things hit our parents serious. These things, parents who had never been alcoholic became alcoholic. When you go to Uganda House today, you find certain gentlemen seated around Uganda House up to today. They dress up in a certain smart way and they just sit. It's like they've never recovered from structural adjustment program, whereby people were sacked en masse, lost jobs, and some of them had amazing jobs. You know, you finish university and you are employed, you have everything, including the bottle of water. You have your bottle of water, you have a vehicle, you have a house, it is fully furnished, everything, your kids go to a great school, everything suddenly is not there. And the things of financial education, you need to know them. Not at all. Save up some money and so on. No. Those are for the people who are uneducated, who went into business, or whose parents were Indian, or whose parents started small businesses. Those are the people who learned such survival skills, which the educated class, as we call them, did not have. Right? Globalization and capitalism is a huge impact, had a huge impact on who we are. So thus far, I've given you what education was meant to be and what education made assumptions of and what the reality is. And so the question now is, how do we survive? How do we survive? How do we survive in a world which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous? I wrote this book in 2019. December is when we had the first printout. March 2020, the world shut down. And then it hit me, this is the VUCA thing you're talking about. Because when I was writing it in 2019, I had not gotten the full revelation of what VUCA means. VUCA means that your parent can die when they are in the fullest health. They can just die. Yeah. But the company you believe is the best company, like Nokia, that has done everything right, can suddenly collapse. Just like that. Or the university that you're prided in and felt, I'm working in this, suddenly they tell you the courses you're teaching have expired. Yeah. Or you've been raising your family, your son has graduated, You go to the graduation ceremony, they crown him, they celebrate him, and so on. You go back home, and your wife has left you because all she was waiting for was that graduation day. Once the child has graduated, she has no money for you. Because she has been stocking up a lot of frustration. Meanwhile, she has already been elsewhere. And she disappears, and you don't know what did I do wrong? When did I begin doing this wrong? What? The lady has disappeared. Amazing change. Your loved one says to you, I'm no longer in love with you now. I'm done. Can I repair? Can I? No. I'm in love with someone else. How I want to become like this other guy, the Olympian who decided he now wants to become a lady. So as we prepare therefore in our spaces, first as individuals, then as members of families, we now start to ask the question, how do we survive? The first thing I would like to suggest to us is that we need to run away from only emphasizing the intelligent quotient. To begin to think beyond that intelligent quotient, which is really a measure of a person's relative intelligence, to start thinking of the emotional quotient, also known as EQ, the ability to identify and manage your emotions and the emotions of others. And they say that the sky is the limit for a person who excels in both of these. Now begin to think about your workspace. How many of you have been here and are in Southgate merely because you are brilliant and you have a first class degree? 100%. It's not enough. Because here you talk about logic, mathematical reasoning, spatial reasoning, verbal reasoning, memory and recall, and so on. But here we are talking about self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision making, relationship skills, your ability to interact with Hilda or to interact with an individual who is very hard to work with. I remember in my school there was someone who nobody wanted to talk to. They started saying, "Whether that's your friends." How you tell your friends? Sometimes Claire will tell you that I am in meetings upon meetings, and someone is speaking, they are annoyed about someone else, and I tell, why don't you tell them that you are not happy? Like, no, I can't tell you. How will you know? So anyway, the four components of emotional intelligence are the ability to have social skills, empathy, motivation, self-awareness. They say here that 20% of companies are now measuring EQ in the hiring or promotion process. They are asking that how, because tomorrow you're going to have a problematic client. And I know you've had many. Yeah. And you've had to deal with the question, how do I go beyond the fact that I have a strong CV to do the work? Because you can do the work. You're a graduate QS. You can do the work. I got a message from someone who said that graduate QS. Say, okay. Emotional intelligence, alongside 33 other important workplace skills, was found that EQ is the strongest indicator. It therefore means that your ability to work with others supersedes how many degrees you have. Supersedes. I received a call from someone who said that you were recommended by someone else to be the one to speak on my behalf to so and so. And I was like, the one who has recommended you works with that individual. They're in the same building. But that one has said, no, you talk to Ruhweza, who has some kind of way they can communicate to my fellow workmates. Yeah. All my stories are like Apmo says. So IQ therefore is that. I won't go into too much of it. I'm sure many of us have engaged with IQ. But I want us to see the differences here. I like this one. EQ, emotional quotient, ability to identify, perceive, control and evaluate and express emotions. You must be able to know the kind of individuals you're going to approach. And I know many of you have them. You're like, I'm going to meet client X. How do I pull it off? Like Moses was saying, the person you're going to meet is a hard one. How do we pull it off? EQ represents emotional abilities such as identifying the emotions, developing social skills, evaluating how others feel. Such that this I think the president of Uganda has learned to do very well. That's why he doesn't rush in making decisions. You keep wondering, why hasn't he appointed a Bank of Uganda governor up to today? You think he has forgotten? I'm sure he keeps on receiving reports. If he asks him, I'll tell him who to appoint. He's in this room. IQ, on the other hand, is cognitive intelligence. And many of us do relatively well here. We excel. Represents abilities such as working and short-term memory, reasoning of situations, knowledge, etc. But if you can manage to have both, you're in a much better place. And yet I'm not yet done there. The emotional quotient, therefore, is defined as an individual's ability to sense, understand, and effectively apply the power and acumen of emotions to facilitate higher levels of collaboration and productivity. You want to get the best out of your team beyond their qualifications. Are you able to sense? Are you able to understand? Can you use that ability that they have? Because some people are actually extroverts, but others are introverts. And they react differently in different circumstances. Some people are red, others are yellow. Sanguines. Some are blues and others are green. You know? How do you manage through working with the blues, the reds, the yellows, the greens, and all those that are in your company, in your presence? Maybe one time we shall even talk about the levels of leadership, from positional leadership to being able to get people to work because of how you relate with them. Yeah. Why is it that in the meeting, the person they first volunteer is Elizabeth? And Elizabeth will do it. Why? Because she has been able to exude certain qualifications that go beyond IQ. So Robin Sharma writes a book called A Leader Without a Title. And you have a leader without a title here. And you know them. They don't need a title to do certain things or to get you to do certain things. Yeah. They don't need it. In some of the spaces where I am, there are people who ask Dan to let him be the one to help us there. Why? They've been able to identify certain things. So a person's emotional intelligence may be a better predictor of performance success than intelligence. Think about it. Think about it. Oh, can I get I want to charge my laptop. Okay. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Oh, there. All right. So we are together, we are picking something, huh? Yeah. So EQ therefore represents your character. And I'll tell you more about this one in the next slide, which represents your charisma. Okay. So as you can see from here, you have a whole person, their social skills. If you mix social skills with IQ, somewhere there are certain things you pick. You are emotionally restricted. Why? Because you don't have this one. If you have EQ and only social skills, you are intellectually restricted. Why? Because you don't have intelligence. If you have only EQ and IQ, you are socially restricted. Why? Because you don't have these skills. So a whole person must have social skills, IQ, emotional intelligence in order to do whatever the things that they have to do. And I'll give you one more there very quickly, which I'm sure some of you have even seen in your WhatsApp groups. And this is the adversity quotient. Adversity quotient. And we'll ask, what does that mean? I'll be very quick there. Social quotient measure of your ability to build a network of friends. Yeah. And maintain it over a long period of time. People think that having friends is a waste of time. But the Machingas say that if you spend time building friendships, you're better than that one who has spent time digging in the garden. And then Machinga learned digging. Adversity quotient is the measure of your ability to maintain peace with others. Keep time, be responsible, be honest, respect boundaries, be humble, genuine, considerate. Actually, you could put adversity under here. Even these 3 and 4 can come under here, if need be. But just to be clear, can you handle your adversary? Yeah. Do you know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it? The times, by the way, I have lost my temper. My wife will tell you. So if you have a higher emotional intelligence quotient and social quotient here, you tend to get on further in life than those with high IQ with low EQ and SQ. So do not overemphasize when you're looking at a CV, someone's IQ. Look deeper. Ask them for examples where they have handled very hard situations with a lot of emotions involved. And they should be able to identify those situations. How have you handled in such a situation? Will give you a better picture of how they will represent your company over and above their intelligence. And when you think about it, when you read that book, what is it called? What's that book, love? The Outliers. Yeah. When you read Outliers, and it's available, you can pick it up, and I'll encourage us to pick it up, as I'll say shortly. It helps you see what people do over and above. What makes them outliers away from the pack? What makes them outstanding leaders? All right. So most schools will capitalize on improving the IQ. And they'll downplay your social quotient, they'll downplay your emotional quotient, and yet the workspace is looking for these very things. And many times when you really think about it, the person you want to work with is the person who recognizes you. Not the person who has an amazing ability to write a good contract or draw very good drawings. Over and above that, how do they make you feel? Somewhere there, you are most welcome. I recognize you.
Sorry, I'm very late.
But we are happy you are here.
I thought I would know what I did learn at campus, but
So really, if you consider those quotients in this kind of VUCA environment, then you begin to see why it's important for us to apply them. And remember, like I have said, I think let me give you all these slides here to make my conversation easier. Yeah. So, when you have volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, you're not only going to be thinking, I have a degree in mathematics. No, it won't help you. In fact, we are seeing more and more people who are no longer using their degrees. Kakaire there, he studied something, but I know him as an amazing photographer. I've never engaged him in the things he studied on campus. No. We talk about totally different things than photography. So we must be beyond that degree that we receive. What more are you giving? What more are you giving? So the term VUCA was used and introduced by the US Army War College to describe the more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous multilateral world that emerged at the end of the Cold War. In fact, there is a book that we read by Major McChrystal called what? Team of Teams. And he paints a picture of the fight against, I think it's the Al-Qaeda. Yeah. And said that you need to have a different perspective. This command structure of that there is a top boss and everyone follows their command doesn't work. Totally. That's why you hear that when they killed one Al-Qaeda leader, 3 others prop up. And then you hear them say, now we've killed the most important leader. The next thing, there's another guy who is commanding. Different teams leading differently. And in such a situation, it's very hard for you to clear. Because people have gone beyond just respecting one commander to understanding the purpose of the cause. The cause as to why we are doing what we are doing. It's totally different. And they are sure that if I am nipped tomorrow, you are certain that someone else is coming up. When the Roman Empire generals were fighting a certain tribe, I think they were called the Gauls. Gauls. I think that tribe, they knew we are going to be, we have to fight differently. So there will be one person who is the sacrificial lamb who falls onto the Roman spear. And you know those days you had one spear. So there is a guy who falls onto it and dies. But he's sure the spear is gone and his teammates are coming for you. You can't win in such a situation. In a world where there is terrorism, and this kind of financing of illicit businesses, you can't fight the way we used to fight Shaka Zulu style. You can't. So, where there is volatility, you get to understand that changes can be rapid and unpredictable. Therefore, in your planning retreat, you need to start thinking, what if anything happens? What have we put in place to deal with that volatility? I'll tell you, Makerere University, we were caught flat-footed. That is, we were caught unready when COVID came. Thank God we had been attending some online church with the Worship Harvest. I started telling my students I can do a Zoom class with you guys. Just come in every Friday at 3 p.m. and we shall have a conversation. online. Those who can't come, I understand. You're still looking for my gadgets. We were caught flat-footed. Some people were better ready than others. Zoom Technologies was ready, and they made a killing, I believe, in that time. Number 2, uncertainty. Today is unclear, and tomorrow is uncertain. We only have now. 3, complex. Different and interconnected factors can cause chaos and confusion, and ambiguity, lack of clarity. So the VUCA world therefore means that we are in a space whereby you cannot be totally secure in the things that you do. No, you can't. You have to be ready to face spaces that are uncharted waters, like the sailors. You have to be ready. So that's why even as you're thinking through, the planning through with Southgate, I'd like you to begin to ask yourself, supposing there is no more space for architects or surveyors or quantity surveyors, right? If there is no space for that, then what happens? How do we survive? During COVID, you know, some people were teaching in primary schools, secondary schools, and when COVID hit, things became totally different. Some people never went back teaching. They started making more money in the businesses they were doing. Uganda in Ecclesiastes challenges us to have more than one source of income. More than one source of income, and not feel too important. Yeah, because there's things you will do and you feel you are downgrading. You know, when I went to do my PhD, I was in a space where I needed some little money, so I had to find the space, and I found the space in cleaning toilets and washing dishes at dinner spaces. I said I'll do it. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's money. Yeah, it's money. And also when you're in a space where your lecturers are even riding bicycles in the top university, you're like, what's the big deal here? Get me a bicycle also. I'll ride it. Nobody cares how you got there, but you are in time for your class. So you start shedding off unnecessary airs. I remember my mother, when I was doing my first degree at Makerere, my mother was staying on campus, and I used to dig. And one time some friends said, hey, don't you feel shy that, you know, girls and people are looking at you digging on campus? I said, man, when I'm eating this maize, it doesn't matter whether they thought me in one way or another, because I'm now I'm reaping off the benefits of what I'm doing. But the point is that volatility is very critical for us to be able to start thinking of alternative ways of survival, right? So VUCA impacts how people plan ahead, how they make decisions, how they foster change, how they manage, risk, and how they solve challenges. The only constant thing, therefore, remains change. It's a statement that was supposedly made in 500 BC by someone called Heraclitus of Ephesus. Even though this statement is over 2,000 years old, it's so applicable today. Change is faster, it's more frequent, less certain than ever before. And I'm sure the ladies, you may not realize it, but you know this better. Because you know what happens with hairstyles. Today it's X, tomorrow it's Y. The other day it's Afro, the next thing braids. The next thing is, I don't know, Janet Cut. Every time there is a change. For us men, we struggle a bit. Like up to now, I still go to the barber who chopped my hair when I was on campus.
Yes.
Like my wife tells me, go near here, walk out of the gate. There is a barber. I'm like, yeah, there is. But now it's about relationships.
Yep.
Yeah. Where I'm going, it is more than just cutting my hair. It's about the conversation. How are you doing? The friends that are around, the things we talk about. It is more than just a haircut. I don't know what the ladies consider, but for us, that's where I can. So VUCA strives to provide some principles and approaches to deal with the dizzying pace and pace of change. So I'd like, as you leave this place, I'd like you to think carefully about this change thing. That do not be don't be comfortable. And I've said this a lot with my wife. She's always studying something here, something there. You know, and yeah, I mean, she's different, of course. I don't have the same pace, but she's always picking up new ideas. And a time comes when that idea becomes relevant, when that qualification becomes relevant, when that opportunity builds certain things for you. So what therefore must we do? One, we must be ready to learn at all times. But at the same time, we must be ready to unlearn or to relearn certain things that we've taken for granted. What are those things that we can learn or that we can relearn in the different dispensation now? It's like when you read the Bible. Today you think the Bible is only giving you this message X. When you read it again, you begin to discover things that you had never thought possible, that begin to make sense to you once more. What are those things? You know, the Uganda have a saying that even the young person can play the drum and the old person dances. What are the young people around you playing right now? Or are you too important to learn from them? I like the idea of growing leaders that is happening in Southgate. Because those leaders come with different experiences and help you get better. And it's very similar to the story I had when I read the book from Third World, First World, the story of Singapore and Lee Kuan Yew. When he realized, when his friend said, I am stepping aside now, I have done my part, let these young people begin to contribute. And those young people, sometimes they have crazy ideas, but you let them shine. I have one student, he's now just finished his PhD in an American university. When he was a student, he came from somewhere in Kigezi, he was always with ideas. And he always came to me. One time he came and said, I want to start a magazine. I said, start it. What do you need? I need the petrol, I need someone to stand. I said, I will do that for you. He started it. Then we went for what we call like a mock trial, a moot court competition. He said, in this moot court, I want to bring some bit of MDD, like some acting out the moot. And I was like, the moot is about court. Nobody wants to do a co-curricular MDD to play out what is happening in the court. You know, the issues happening in court. I want to play them out. I said, I am ready to support you. What do you need? He said, I want to write to the organizers. I said, fine, let us go ahead. Then the next thing, finally, his PhD is not even in law, it's in literature. He started an organization called, have you heard of Rightivism? Rightivism, yeah. He started Rightivism. I've never heard of that word. I said, look, I'm support. What do you want me to do? He said, now can you come and just speak something? Say something. I said, look, I'll come. I came, I started to ask questions, and I also gambled somewhere. I gave answers. Later on my birthday about 3 years ago, he wrote me he wrote about me on my birthday. And I was like, I didn't know what I was doing at that time. All I knew is that I saw this very interesting individual who had very crazy ideas, and I decided to support them. Now he's teaching somewhere, he's doing whatever, and he has managed to cut his niche, not knowing where he's going to reach tomorrow. Young man from somewhere far away amongst the Latino, and he's doing these amazing things. And I know you even got a scholarship to do his PhD. What are the crazy ideas that you have? What are they? You just don't know how long they will last. About a month ago, I went to SMAC. I don't know if anyone here was in SMAC. I went to SMAC. And I went to attend what they called a convocation or a convention of Uganda Secondary Schools Prefects Association. Now, when I was a head prefect many years ago, we started this thing. And at that time, I had all this excitement and what we started it. And for me, I wanted the first convention to be in Serena. By then, it was called what? Nile Hotel, that conference center. And my head teacher said, "Come down." But 20-something years down the line, the thing is still in existence. Prefects are still gathering. They have a cohort that is in Western, there's a cohort in Eastern, the cohort in Central. The thing has never died. What is your crazy idea? The one you think, this one, if it survives maybe one day, do it. You just don't know, it will give employment and opportunity for people. Because now people are able to write on their CVs, I was so and so in this. And it helps build your portfolio in leadership. So what can we unlearn? 2, we must change. We must change. We must be ready to change. There is an Odyssey of Homer, which is a Greek mythology, meaning it's a storytale, whereby they are talking about these veterans, these heroes who went to accomplish a certain task. You know the things that heroes do, the men and so on, went, I don't know, to recover some golden fleece. But on their way back, they met an old man of the sea, according to the story, called the Proteus. And they needed to vanquish that Proteus. This Proteus kept on changing. It was a shapeshifter. It would turn into a tree, then into a lion, then into fire, then into water. And the story is that the Greeks had to keep on changing. Right now you're gripping a tree. Tomorrow you're doing what? That is what we need to do. In that book by Major Macristo, Team of Teams, he said that they thought they had vanquished the Al-Qaeda. And suddenly, something else happened. I don't know where it was. Yeah, which one? El-Shabaab or something happened. So they realized you must always be on the ready at any time. And so your attitude in Southgate is, we must always be on the ready. That is why I've been saying to both myself and those around me and to others who are careful to listen, that there are certain unchanged. How much time do I have? Yeah, it's all finished. But nobody wants me. Okay, let me try to summarize. There are certain unchanging values we must have in order to confront the changes that continue to happen around us. You're not going to say that because everyone is now fluid, gender fluid, then I also become gender fluid. No. Because you'll be gender you must have review, surely. Yeah. I think that needs more time, but we shall talk. So there are certain things you must be able to say, this is who I am. And this is what I am going to do. I'm going to be quick now and as I conclude. So, therefore, the illiterate of the 21st century, according to Alvin Toffler in his book Future Shock, is that person who will be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. The illiterate is the person who cannot do this. Not one who cannot read and write. Yeah. Are you able to learn, unlearn, and relearn? If not, you will be the illiterate of the 21st century. When any real progress is made, we must unlearn and learn anew what we thought we knew before. Henry David Thoreau said. Therefore, as we conclude, these are some thoughts I want to give us. And I think the rest I will do. EQ versus other Qs should not be what we are targeting. It should be having all types of quotients. We can't do it on our own. In the book I talk about the role of mentors, because they open doors, they guide us, they help us. And it's the big conversation we must have about mentorship. The people who have walked the journey and are willing to open their homes, their lives, to walk with us as well. Your network is your net worth. I can't emphasize this enough. And I know all of us here, in one way or another, you have benefited from your network. Because the people who employ you, the people who tell you about jobs, the people who tell you about where not to go, this is your network. This is where your real worth is. Where your money will be. The other time we had a baby, when we gave birth to either our first or second daughter, I done something for an old boy of ours. And he just called me and said, come, I want to pay. I thought I'd done it pro bono. I said, no, you come, I want to pay. Network. Grit, I talk about grit. Your ability to hold on to this thing. You know, I've seen the journey of Southgate. You've held on. Accountability, we must have auditors, we must have this, we must have the other. As a result of sticking to certain value systems, certain things you've done consistently, even when it has been inconvenient, doors have opened. Grit is the ability to say that I am going to remain in Southgate and seek Southgate flourish. I will not jump shit at the first sign of trouble. I will hang on because I have faith where this thing is going to go. It's like a mother giving birth. You either give birth or you give birth. Like the baby has to come out in one way or another. Dead or alive, the mother has to give birth to this child. So having that grit to say, we are on this thing. It's like marriage. Yeah. Marriage will only fail if you are one leg in and one leg out. You must be able to say, okay, I've married, I've made a decision. Yeah. And this is for especially the men. You decide and you commit every day. You know, every day you wake up, your wife will not look like the picture perfect thing that you see of the Mona Lisa. Yeah. Maybe the hair is this side, the lipstick is no longer there, the eyebrows have changed. Like the other movie we watched whereby the guy's, what was that black spot kept on changing. Whenever he would remember to put the beauty spot, he would change it. And that is what marriage is. Yeah, you fight together, you win together, you argue together, you laugh together, you grit is that ability to say, come and buy, we are in this thing, Pakalast. And most of the people who have succeeded is because of this. And relatedly, YOLO, you only live once. Yeah, you only live once. So make the best out of that thing that you are doing. Yeah, make the best out of it. Why do I say so? Because there will never be another opportunity on this earth to say, I'm coming back this time as a sugar cane. No, you're going to. So there is a book we read that taught us about the 5 capitals. And I have realized that this is an amazing space or an amazing area for us to do life meaningfully. Yeah. And you can see all this stuff, you never get it in a classroom. Never. How I wish we would teach that in a classroom. I know that some universities have begun to teach this stuff, but many have not. So when you talk about the 5 capitals, I've talked about the social capital, your ability to make friends intentionally. Yeah. Knowing very well that if I don't make friends, I am nipping a certain part about my ability to succeed. So making friends is not optional for any of us. Yeah. Sending that WhatsApp message or saying hello, even when you don't want to. Yeah. Even when you're in your comfort zone. Yeah, the men we call it our nothing box. You just don't want to talk to anybody. Send that message. Say hello. My wife will tell you that there are times when I've sent messages to this particular group of boys and they don't respond. I invite them for tea, they don't come. And I told her, I'm done with these guys. Then after 3 weeks, I am back. Intellectual capital. Being able to read something or to listen to something over and above the Bible that we listen to and read, and these other academic books. There must be a book we are reading. If you're on TikTok, who are you listening to? There are some guys who say certain things to us, and I'm going to share this. The thing I never knew about the ladies is that they only have 1 week of sanity. In every 5 weeks, they only have 1 week of when they are sane, isn't it? There is the 1 week or 1 month? How do I do? 1 week out of a month. There is the week before the period. Then there is the period. Then there is the week after the period. And then some sanity before the week before the period. And so I have grown to have a certain amount of respect for our mothers and for the ladies. To see them in a different light when they come to the workspace and they achieve, And above that, they are expected to dress in a certain way, behave in a certain way, look beautiful and attractive. Kumbe deep down, man, the body has its own agenda. It is saying, today I just don't want to talk to anyone. So before us being saying that woman is difficult, wait a minute. Yeah. There is the week before, the week after, and then there is that hard week. Those are 3 weeks. Then some sanity. And of course, depending on who you are, even in the same week, there may be like 3 days are not good and having the 2 days of joy. But that's intellectual ability to learn something new. The other thing I learned is that the ovum can ghost you. You know an ovum? Yeah, the ovum ghosts the sperm. Like it creates a certain. Man, I was like, wow, I've never known this. Yeah. You're there blaming the woman, touch her, okay, maybe that's a good thing to blame now. But it's the ovum now. That it creates a space around it where it cannot be seen by the spermatozoa. Yeah, it ghosts them. It is there, but you can't see it. And then it only allows the sperm it has chosen to see it. What is amazing? There is also spiritual capital. The things we do in church, praying every day, reading the Bible. I was talking to someone, I was on TV 2-3 days ago, and I was saying, man, everything that we talk about, at the end of the day, there is prayer that is involved. And I know this place is succeeding because of prayer. I know you have a prayer altar. Yeah. If you want more money in your salary, and I know you got a salary increase recent. Yeah. If you want more money here. And the beauty about the spiritual capital is that when everyone else is struggling, for you guys, you're in your own kingdom. Yeah. Like the Bible talks about Isaac. Isaac was prospering when everyone was in the desert. For him he was prospering. Physical capital, the works we do, the food we eat. There I always tell people that I'm struggling. But we are trying. One step at a time. And then financial. We are saving in spaces. We are saving 20%. We are looking after the money. It doesn't matter how much money. I was telling the students that I've told to start saving money at Makerere, at the School of Law. They save about 20K. Within a year, they had raised about 2 million. And someone said, this is the time for us to go for the IPSA. Yeah. The full roasted IPSA. I said, no. This money should be invested. So now we've invested it in Zeno. Zeno is helping us with that kind of investment. Yeah. Here in spiritual, I'd like to challenge you at Southgate. Plant a seed somewhere. Plant a seed. Yeah. Give a tithe. And I know the Lord will open doors for you. We'll talk about handling failure later on. So let me stop here because I know my time is up and yet I'm only going halfway. Our presentation. Yeah, because I wanted to talk about other things, but we shall talk about them later. All right. So I don't know if there is any question, anything people want to ask, seek clarification, and then I can attempt to give some responses, and then I'll sit down. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Mine is actually a request. But maybe we organize another session because really I felt like last half that has been really should be given to us. We're still enjoying and everything. How I wish we can have another session to continue. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot of things. Great is one thing that has been coming so much in my life, and now I feel like I should hold on more. Thank you so much for the teachings. Really.
Anyone else? Ask a question and also challenge the things I've seen. That is the best part. Where you're like, I don't agree on this one. Yeah. You're not lawyers. But you can contest the values placed for the price of cement and iron bars. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Do I need to start?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I will see. I have a question. Me as an introvert that's trying not to be an introvert, thanks to Sam. How do I build social capital? That social, what do you call it? I prefer. My life is I go to work, I go back home, and I'm happy like that. But I have learned recently that that's not healthy. But I'm also uncomfortable outside, so.
How do you handle it? The idea that has come to my mind is what I'll talk to you about next time. It's here. Yeah, it's here. This is what we call the hedgehog. The hedgehog. It's Elizabeth, right?
Yes.
What is Elizabeth deeply passionate about? Even if it is architecture or quantity surveying, are you deeply passionate about it? Or is it music? What are you deeply passionate about? Because all of us have that. And because of our passions, we tend to start attracting people or being attracted to people who are similar. Or you find spaces where you can easily talk about it, even when you're the idea you keep quiet. What are you deeply passionate about? And can you talk about it? Not necessarily in a space like this one, a big place where most introverts do not want to engage. Right? But in your one-on-one conversations with the people around you. You know, I talked about mentorship. And you see, mentorship is a one-on-one conversation. I say, Hilda, how are you? You don't have to have 10 people. I'm sure you have 1 or 2 friends who you can have a conversation with, who will listen to you when you're talking about your deep passion. Maybe about the color pink, for example. And, you know, whatever it is that you're deeply passionate about. And then, what can you be the best in the world at? Let's just talk about QS. Right? That this thing, oftentimes it may not even be, it may be flowers. You're deeply passionate about them, and you like the time spent in arranging flowers. So you can think of anything else. It might be engines or whatever. You are the best in the world at it. You know that if someone woke you up, you will do something about it. You have something. And lastly, what is that drives your economy against Uganda? The intersection, that's what you call it in math. Intersection there is what we call HO, your specialty. I normally tell people that is where you can start a conversation that becomes easy for you to have with some people. Like when you're meeting someone, maybe over a cup of tea, or you're in a restaurant and someone comes to say hello and you don't know what to say, what do? You immediately can start talking about what you want. People are passionate about it. Well, among the things that I do, I love collecting stones. I have a green stone, a blue stone, purple. Now I have. Then you begin that talk about stones. You get it? So it's an easier way for you to get it. Number two, start with the low-hanging fruits. Many times people think that to be an extrovert, I must be at a TEDx talk. Even though I've never reached at a TEDx talk as yet. No, it may be that conversation on your desk with a student intern that has just come